Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. And I'd just like to take the time out to thank each and every one of you for joining me on this Saturday, which you didn't have to do. I know there's other things you could be doing, but by the grace of God, you chose to spend an hour with me. And that's why I'm here. Even though my voice is breaking and it's raspy, we got to overlook all that. We are now moving 2 steps closer to war. And what I mean by that is there was a report that came out earlier today, from the Russian diplomatic corps. Okay, nobody's talking about this. We're going to address Iran, Israel. We're going to address Palestine, Africa. We're going to address Asia and China. We're going to try to get as much as we can in a limited time. Okay, but in Russia today, there was an article titled, "Moscow Reiterates Threat to Sever Diplomatic Ties with U.S." Now, this is major just in the title, because that alludes to something that is very, very serious. But before we address what the title alludes to, let's read the article itself and then break it down. I haven't read the article, but I want to read it with you all. So the article says, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov has cautioned Washington against further attempts to tap Russia's assets or take steps that escalate the Ukrainian conflict. Moscow could sever diplomatic relations with Washington if the latter persists in its hostile policies towards Russia, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov warned in an interview with the news outlet Izvestia, published on Saturday. The diplomat said that any steps the U.S. takes that could escalate the Ukraine conflict may justify rupturing ties. Now, before we go any further, that first paragraph stated a hell of a lot of stuff in it. As simple as it was, it stated a lot of stuff. And let me tell you, it says Moscow could sever diplomatic relations with Washington. Listen, here are the conditions for diplomatic relations. If the latter, meaning Washington, persists in its hostile policies towards Russia. And then it tells us about escalating the Ukraine conflict. Now, what's major about this is when a nation severs, not suspends, not recall ambassadors back for consultations, but severs diplomatic relations, in most cases, more than not, that is a prelude to war. To sever diplomatic relations means that the country is in a state of war. No more diplomacy between the two. That means it moves to a pre-war phase. You understand? So the title of the article, Moscow reiterates, meaning they have already stated, they've already conveyed this message to Western media and Western diplomats and U.S. leadership, that if the provocations and the escalations continue, the outcome of that would be to sever all diplomatic relations with the United States. Anybody and anyone who understands politics or geopolitics know that is 2 steps before war. Matter of fact, it's 1 step before war. Right? Because what that country is conveying is there's nothing else to talk about. We've done our best to talk to you. We've done our best to reach you. We've done our best to negotiate with you. We've tried to take your views, but you are only interested in your perspective. So there's nothing left to talk about, because it seems like the language we're speaking, you don't understand. So now we will sever that and not waste energy on that. And from that point on, after the severing of diplomatic relations, guess what happens? Russia then starts speaking the language that America understands. And what is her history tells us that the language, the prime language that she understands is not English. It's not Spanish. According to the history of America, the prime and most prominent language that America understands is war. And that is what Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov is trying to convey to the world, how serious this moment is in time. And to publish this in such a way is to let the people know that Russia is fed up. So let's read a little bit more, because we got to address a lot of things, okay? It says, this past June, Ryabkov warned that Washington's increasingly hawkish posture towards Russia was making any diplomatic contacts practically impossible. Did I just tell you that? But I've been warning everybody this for the longest. I said, listen, what must Russia do? People thought that I was a war hawk, and people thought that I was advocating war. All I was doing was advocating common sense. And I break it down to the level of the person on the street or the person in the house. If you and I are at each other, and I'm trying to convey something to you that we don't have to be enemies, let's make this a beneficial relationship between both of us. Let both of us work. And there'll be certain things that I don't like that you do. And if it's not too egregious, I'll overlook that, and vice versa. But we don't have to be adversaries or be on this confrontational path. And if I continue to try to do that at every turn, I'm backstabbing you. I'm undermining you. I'm undermining the security of your family. I'm undermining the security of your home, everything. After a while, common sense kicks in and say, hey, I've tried to talk to this guy over and over and over and over again. And every time it seems that I'm making headway, whenever they think they have the advantage, they go back and undermine the agreements that we had. So evidently what I'm saying is not getting through to them. So from this point on, I'm just going to cut them off. I'm not going to talk. And so from that point on, you cut that person off, cut me off. Now, if I continue to throw garbage in your yard, throw rocks at the children, and say, hey, and then you have another person that you disagree with, and I'm passing them rocks to throw. After a point, you stop and say, you know what? Talk as much as we can talk. Now it's time for me to act. That is not advocating war. That is advocating common sense. That if you don't seem to understand the language that I'm trying to talk to you in, then the best way for me to communicate with you is to no longer speak the language that you have not comprehended. The best way for me to communicate with you is to learn the language that you like to speak in and speak it back to you. That's common sense, right? This is what this guy's alluding to. But when I was saying it and saying it and saying it, I'm a warmonger. I'm not pushing or advocating war. I'm advocating truth. And in so many platforms and in so many discussions, people leave out inconvenient truths because it's not what they think the other person would accept, or the other person may not like them, so they'll unsubscribe or so they won't donate. Man, I don't care anything about that. I'm going to tell you the truth regardless, and you can take it or leave it. And now you see, Russia is finally starting to see what I was saying. I was saying Russia should have warned the United States and NATO back when they started sending those weapons to Ukraine and started firing into Russia, the borders of Russia, that Russia should strike out and hit them. Not that I was advocating war. I was advocating common sense. Because every time you let the bully get away with bullying, it emboldens the bully. It emboldens the bully. And then the bully takes the next step. And then the next step. And then the next step. And when you're trying to talk the bully down, he believes now that you're at a disadvantage and that you have some fear in your heart against him. So he is, even though he may have miscalculated that, he is willing now to take it to that next step. But if you had socked that bully in the mouth or demonstrated to that bully the consequences of the constant provocations, then maybe you could have avoided a fight. That's common sense. All right, let's go a little further. Excuse me, my throat. My throat is bothering me. Hold on one second, everybody. Matter of fact, before I read any more of this, I'm going to go to a clip real quick. I want you guys, where is it at? Where is it at? I want you to listen to this, all right? And pay close attention to what is being said here about the escalation of America against Russia. I blame America, but I blame Russia for not reacting in the way that it should. Because had it reacted in the way that it should, there would be no talks of F-16s. There would be no talks of Bradleys and all of this stuff. There would be no talk of that. Because they would see, before I play the clip, let me level with you guys. The problem with the world today is people don't say what they mean and mean what they say. All right? They don't do it. If I tell you that if you do this here, there will be consequences behind this, and I don't live up to it, or I minimize what I said, guess what happens? Then you start thinking in your mind, I can do the next thing. And if I say it again to that, and I don't react the way you expected me to, guess what happens? You go to the next step. But if I tell you, hey, if you cross those lines right there, there will be a military response. Not forget this other stuff. There will be a response militarily. If what you did to me was military, then I will respond militarily. Then guess what? When you do it and I hit you, you're faced with these choices. To censor it as not to escalate it, or to escalate it and find out if what I'm doing is planned. And common sense tells you that the second is not to your benefit, especially if you're trying to maintain your already crumbling world order. You understand? So I think more people need to say what they mean and mean what they say, and convey it in the best way possible. And don't do all of this dancing around and all. No. Look them in the eyes and say, listen, I don't want a war with you. But there's no way on flipping earth that I'm going to let you supply these guys these weapons to strike my men and women in Ukraine, or to strike my territory. And I would, and in dealing with them as talking, I say, now I want you to understand, what if I was in Mexico and I was doing the same thing with people who want to secede from the United States and Texas? I was arming them. How would you react? How would you react? So just think for a second how you would react. And if you do that, remember what your thoughts were. That will be the response to you. And then you can, if a person tells you like that and looks you in the eye and is straight up with you, you know how to deal with it. You know, all of this dancing around and all of this changing what you're saying, that invites miscalculation, which ups the level for war. What I'm saying minimizes mistakes, minimizes the chances for war. But if you don't do this, look at where we are right now, on the brink of thermonuclear war, because people are not saying what they mean and mean what they say. So I want to play this clip for you, and then I'll be back on the other side of this clip. First, before I play the clip, let me do this thing here, because, man, YouTube, you tripping. Shout out to all of the platforms: Rumble, Odyssey, Twitch, Twitter, BitChute, Locals, the Red Pill Diaries, the Red Pill Journals, and Twitter. So I'm going to play this disclaimer first. All right. Now that should take care of everything that I play after this. So I want to play this 5 or 6 minute clip. I want you to pay close attention of what the journalist is asking the guest and how the guest is responding, okay?
Alexander Markovich, the head of the Suvorov Institute organization in Vienna. Many thanks for your time. It's good to see you. So we have this evidence emerging that Western fighters are directly involved in attacking Russia from Ukrainian territory. What do you make of it?
I'd say we can make out of that the West still is and still wants to further escalate the war against Russia in Ukraine. And yeah, the newest findings of American fighters inside the conflict are just the proof that NATO is already directly involved, of course, only with special forces, with officers, in order to prolong this proxy war against Russia. And I think it's just another proof for the double standards and the hypocrisy of the West. For example, when we remember the hysteria surrounding allegations of North Korean troops participating in the battle for Ukraine, we could hear about Russia escalating the war. But of course, when the West is doing this escalation himself, Western media remain silent, and American politicians are not asking about why the US is actually escalating this war since day one.
According to the FSB, the killed foreigners were specialists in sabotage operations behind enemy lines, like capturing military airfields. Indeed, one of those killed apparently had a tattoo of an elite US Special Forces reconnaissance unit. I'm just wondering why you think strategic tasks would be entrusted to mercenaries instead of Kiev's own troops.
Well, I guess that all these so-called mercenaries are basically Western soldiers in disguise, especially from Western elite units like parachutists, for example. And therefore, they have more combat experience, or at least have better equipment, better connected to Western secret services. And therefore, of course, NATO is still leading the Ukrainian war plans, the Ukrainian war preparations, all those missions. They are simply directly out from a NATO playbook, and it's not independent Ukrainian armies or strategists formulating all these plans, but they are coming directly from the West. So it's actually a joke if you would be claiming that Ukraine is leading this war independently. Nothing is further from the truth, but the war itself is basically led from Washington and also from London to a certain degree, in order to cause as many Russian casualties as possible.
What do you make of the timing? Because this does come as the Ukrainian military is retreating while taking mounting losses in the Donbass. And meanwhile, we've got some Western countries flip-flopping on the prospects of peace talks. The German Chancellor is now saying that negotiations will have to take place eventually. So what do you make of the trend?
Well, as we all know, Ukraine is losing. It's losing badly, and it's definitely fighting to the last Ukrainian, as we could see in these talks about also recruiting 18 years old for the Ukrainian army. And it's, of course, no coincidence that these commando actions are happening right now, since Kiev and the West are steadily losing. So they need some victories in order to present them in the Western press and show how weak and spent the Russian military. So you have all these discussions in Western media that Russia has lost 600,000 soldiers, which is, of course, made up. And I guess nearer to the truth would be the fact that Ukraine has lost around 600,000 troops. So the West needs to somehow divert the attention of also its own public from all these losses and present some at least propaganda victories, like, for example, making incursions into the old Russian territories. So they think you can present some victories in order to keep their own citizens spending money and also their own armament industry happy to a certain degree.
You know, Russia recently ratified a collective defence pact with North Korea, and some Western media outlets claim that the DPRK troops are already near the border with Ukraine. The Kremlin has not confirmed this, while saying it's none of the West's business. What's your assessment of that?
Well, I guess we know that Russia and North Korea have both, or the Democratic Republic of Korea, have both a long history of friendship, dating back to the days of Cold War, but especially having been intensified since the end of the Cold War. And yeah, if you look at this friendship and defense treaty, it would be actually only logical that at least some North Korean troops participate in this newest war also, because we all know that North Korea still has some open business together with the southern occupied part of the Korean peninsula and the United States in general. So I guess also North Korea maybe understands as one of the few countries in the world the best that it's necessary and really dire needed that we build up a multipolar world, a more just world, and that we end American imperialism. So it would at least not be a surprise to me if North Korea also participates in the conflict for the future of Ukraine, since it knows that the West must be defeated in its imperialist aggression, may it be in Ukraine or may it be on the Korean peninsula.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. It's good to hear from you. Alexander Markovich, the head of the Suvorov Institute organization in Vienna. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Shout out to Joel Bradford. He's in the building. Shout out to Vera's in the building. Shout out to Cosmo Ray in the building. And all the way from New Zealand, right? Perseverance Chameleon, salute. Shout out to Daniela Modis Cutter, or Modis Cutter. I know I may be butchering the middle. I mean, the Modis or Modis. I'm sorry if I am. Hi. And Collie Beans is in the building. Shout out to everybody. We have an audience of about right now. There's, according to my dashboard, not according to this, but according to my dashboard, we have about 60 people in watching at this moment. So I want to get into something as we're talking about the way these countries get themselves into the predicament that they get in because they don't talk to people the way that they should. Say what you mean what you say. Now, we see that there's an escalation. Shout out to Jagged Stars. Shout out to Bach Precision. I think I'm looking on it's not showing on this. For those of you who I didn't put up, it's only showing on this and it's not showing to highlight right here. So that's why you're not highlighted. I'm sorry. But maybe it will show up in just a second on this one, okay? Let's look at this. Because what a lot of people in analyzing the situation with Russia, with the United States, with China, the United States with Iran, the United States with North Africa, the United States with West Asia, the United States. It's the fact that, and this is one of the deepest things that everybody miss, that America is not the power that she once was. Economically, politically, culturally, geopolitically, ethnically, morally, scientifically, industrially, right? So now, she still is riding on the fumes of that city that set it upon the hill 40 years ago. But she understands threat assessment in a way, because when she looks at Russia, she wants to bog Russia down so that she can pivot then and take out the weakest link that she believes, and that is Iran. And how does she, and not just Iran, to take out Iran, the so-called actions of resistance in West Asia and North Africa, so that she can then pivot and turn to her nemesis, which is China. By doing this, by bogging Russia down in Ukraine, she believes that she can push Russia off balance. And then Russia, because listen, the Ukrainians and the Russians are pretty much one people, right? And now she is going in between both of them and cause strife and division, resentment, alienation, suspicion, and all of that. That's what she does. Remember that fourth horse in Revelation? The one that everywhere it goes, it leaves nothing but death and destruction and misery and pestilence. That's America and Great Britain. Everywhere they go, that's the trail that they leave. I'm not talking about this. Look at the history. History best rewards those who research it. Okay? And so she wants to bog Russia down on Russia's border so that she can pivot towards West Asia, which is the Middle East and North Africa. Because if she can cement her position there, she can weaken the Belt and Road Initiative. She can weaken the Eurasian Economic Union. She can stop what is going on in North Africa as the nations push for full economic, political, geopolitical, and cultural independence. That is against dollar hegemony, which in turn is against American and British imperial rule. You understand? So let me get to something real quick. Let me go to something. All right. Just yesterday, and I'm gonna come to this clip. They were talking about, someone whispered in my ear and says that the U.S. and the U.K. were going to bomb Yemen again, and I'll get to that in a second. But I want to read a little bit off this article right here that's on RT that was published yesterday, and it was by Victor. I mean, it was by Orban. Well, they were quoting Orban. All right, and it says U.S. will abandon Ukraine. Orban. President-elect Donald Trump will withdraw from the conflict, and the EU cannot fund it alone, the Hungarian prime minister says. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will pull his country out of the Ukrainian conflict, leaving EU leaders in an uncomfortable and difficult position, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has said. The situation on the front line is obvious. It's a military defeat. The Americans will get out of this war, he told Kosov Radio on Friday. Europe alone cannot finance this war. Now stop right there. First of all, America and NATO has lost this war. And they may, on the surface, pull out. But knowing America, she's going to leave some embers burning, smoldering, so that she can double back if need be and cause it to turn into a fire. When she's defeated, yes, she pulls out. She blames. And I hear this a lot. I hear it in all of the not mainstream media, but I hear this more in the alternative media, and that means that they're trying to build a narrative about Zelensky. Or Zelensky is detached from reality. Zelensky is demanding more of this and more of that. Zelensky won't sit down and he won't negotiate with this. He'll be forced to if such and such and this. I hear this narrative, and it sounds fine and dandy. But go back to my shows before, about a year ago. I told you, I said, when things get bad, they're going to place the blame on Zelensky, right? I said that. This is to codify some people in who they have rubbed elbows with in the mainstream. How in the world can you truly, on one hand, say that America funds the government of Ukraine to the total of 90%? America supplies 80 to 90% of all the weapons. America has embedded her troops, her intelligence in all areas of the Ukrainian hierarchy, right? And you're telling me that Zelensky is being protected by British and U.S. Special Forces. Let me say that again. Zelensky is being protected by U.S. and British Special Forces. And you're telling me that he has the independence to make up policy that is in contradiction to his handlers? I'm asking, does that make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, why is alternative media beating that drum? Huh? All one has to do is say, if America really wanted Zelensky to do X, Y, and Z, all they have to do is say, do it or we're going to turn the money off. Do it or we're going to do this. Do it or we'll assassinate you. Do it or we'll change the narrative, and like they're changing the narrative now, and we'll scapegoat you, right? That's all they have to do. Oh, we have a track record of that. Why is everybody in the alternative media ignoring the track record to that? It's Zelensky's fault. He's begging for too much. He's begging for unrealistic stuff. No, it is not his fault. Isn't that what the West says? We're in this to the end. We'll support Ukraine as long as it takes. We'll do X, Y, and Z. Ukraine is not alone. Egging these people on to lose hundreds of thousands of lives. Millions are injured and damaged beyond repair. And now that the fighting is looking like it is going very bad, and Russia is moving faster than it has ever moved before, and is seizing more territory, capturing more troops. All of a sudden now, Zelensky will not negotiate with Russia. Remember, it was Zelensky who wanted to negotiate with Russia, but it was Boris Yeltsin, the UK, and the US who stopped him. So you're telling me that he doesn't want to stop and he doesn't want to negotiate, and the United States does, but he won't? How does that even make sense? How does that even make sense? Tell me that. See, they pull this stuff over on you guys, but they're not going to pull it over on me. On the one hand, the United States goes into Ukraine with this kickback scheme of crypto and all of this stuff to whitewash all of this corrupt money, the money laundering. Then they go into the halls of power and take over. And then after that, they turn Slavic brothers against each other. Do you know that the UK was building a naval facility on the Sea of Azov? It only borders Russia and Ukraine. Well, now it only borders Russia, but it bordered Russia and Ukraine, right? My eyes just keep watering. My sinuses are bothering me right now, y'all. So you got to excuse me. So, and NATO had bases, all of this stuff everywhere. And now you're telling me that the thing is going so wrong that it's all Zelensky's fault. Didn't you promise him all those weapons? Well, what is wrong for him to ask for? Huh? Didn't you promise them all of this assistance? Then what's wrong for him to ask for? No, what's better is what's the matter with him demanding that you live up to your word? See, now his life is on the line now. And even though Russia has destroyed NATO's proxy army 3 times and going on the 4th time, that's not on Zelensky. That's on the US. That's on NATO. And now that it's getting down to the crucial time, the crucial hour, it's all on Zelensky now. And the alternative media wants you to believe that. Not the mainstream, the alternative media. It's all Zelensky's fault. He's irrational. He's unsound. Isn't that what they were saying about Saddam Hussein? Weren't they saying the exact stuff about Gaddafi? He's a madman. You can't reason with him. The exact same lines that they used against other proxies, they're now using on Zelensky. And I'm not defending Zelensky. I'm just defending truth. I'm telling you. Why would all of them come with the same thinking? Why would they come with the same lines? It's all Zelensky's fault, and especially if they have been in government before. You know as well as I do, that if America is funding you and arming you and training you and has her military intertwined with yours and her intelligence intertwined with yours, and they are bodyguarding, the security detail of the prime minister and the president is run by the British and the US. You can't fight without America's permission. And you're telling me you want me to believe that all of this is Zelensky's fault? Man, man, I'm telling you, not only does the government not respect your level of thinking, your common sense, but it looks like some of the alternative media doesn't respect it. To go from one extreme to the other in the span of just a year. How is that? Man, I'm telling you what. Let's see. Oh, Perseverance, I'm sorry. In the UK, I'm sorry. Perseverance Committee is in the UK, I'm sorry. Pedro is a trip. I see you, Pedro. Pedro, I'm listening to it in the bed. Okay. But listen, I want you to think about what I'm saying to you all and tell me if what I'm saying makes sense. If they promised this man this stuff, what's the problem with him demanding them to live up to their promise? Does that make him a lunatic because he's demanding it? He's flying everywhere to demand what they promised him? No, what makes him a lunatic is believing the lies that the West told him and then implementing them against the national security of his own nation and the livelihood of his own people. That's what makes him a lunatic, not demanding what they told him that they were going to give him. What somebody tell me if I'm wrong about that. Mehdi says Zelensky is a dead man walking. He is the perfect fall guy. Absolutely, Mehdi. But my point is this, Mehdi. This shows you that somebody has to be compromised. If that is the line that is across not mainstream, but alternative media, that is all Zelensky's fault. Zelensky won't allow his troops to retreat. Zelensky will not negotiate. Zelensky is begging for weapons. Zelensky is stealing money. Zelensky is doing this. You're telling me the United States can pinpoint a penny on the ground from space, right? And they can hear your conversations at all times. And they don't have any inkling about what this man is doing. We've got to consult with him. We have no idea what's, man, stop this. They are insulting your intelligence by this. I'm talking about the alternative media to put all of this on the back of Zelensky. Everybody knows that I think he was a fool. I told you, if you accept those dollars from the United States, this stuff comes with it. He was a fool for that. But we have to be realistic and we have to tell the truth, regardless to whom or what. Have you not heard that your word shall be bond regardless to whom or what? Your answer is what? Yes, my word is bond, and bond is life. And I will give my life before my word shall fail. All right? So, it's all Zelensky's fault. It's all, the battle for Bakhmut, it was Zelensky's fault. Or he wouldn't let people retreat, even though the United States had full control over this. The British had full control over it. When they wanted to stop a negotiation, all they did was tell Zelensky, say no, don't accept that. The negotiation stopped, right? So if they wanted the troops to pull out of Bakhmut when they were fighting, Zelensky pulled the troops out. Huh? Zelensky pulled the troops out of Kursk. Zelensky pulled the troops out of such and such. Why is it that when they want the negotiations to stop, all they have to do is whisper? Right? But when the troops are in untenable situations, it's Zelensky's fault. He won't listen to any sound or rational judgment. And you mean to tell me you can't reach over and say, hey, Zelensky, pull the troops back, have a second line of defense so that we can preserve some of the manpower for our next move. So that's not rational. That's not something that somebody, they can whisper in his ear. When you got NATO control centers in Kiev and around Ukraine, You got U.S. control centers. They are not wise enough to just, or powerful enough to tell Zelensky that, even though he's being secured by U.S. and U.K. special forces. It's Zelensky's fault. Man, if you don't stop this foolishness, stop it. Stop that. See, everybody's agreeing. Absolutely. Yeah. What Perseverance Comedian says, I just invert everything the legacy media says. That's usually closer to the actual truth. But what I'm talking about is not legacy media. I'm talking about alternative media. All of them. Go listen to me good. And some of these people are pretty good. Go listen to how they are reporting how now that the lines are breaking down in Ukraine. Go look. Go look. All of them are blaming Zelensky. He's irrational. He's unsound. He's psychotic. He's this. He's that. He won't listen to anybody. He's setting Ukraine up for failure. He's doing this. He's doing that. Man, and they always, when they say that, they give a pass to the UK. They give a pass to the US. They give a pass to NATO. You're alternative media. You're supposed to question this stuff. You're supposed to ask those questions. Why is it that when you wanted the negotiations to stop, all you did was whisper and it stopped? Why is it when you wanted NATO bases there, all you had to do was whisper and you got them? Why is it that when you were trying to find out what Russia's were hiding their weapons were, you whispered and your spies, the Ukrainian spies, let them know where they were for targeting? But now, to pull troops out of these untenable situations, you can't whisper to Zelensky to do that. Even though these troops are embedded with Western special forces. Right? On top of all of that, you can't whisper and tell them to bring the troops back to a better defendable position. He won't listen to you. He'll listen to you on stopping a negotiation that would have put Ukraine in a better position, but he won't listen to you when it comes to that. You have him surrounded in a circle of Western mercenaries or special forces. You have his government embedded with Western. Matter of fact, the ambassador of Ukraine was American. Make that make sense, right? But guess what? He won't listen to that, even though you're pumping the money in. All across for teachers, for all the civic and social programs, for retirement. You're pumping that money into the Ukrainian economy to pay all of the salaries for the armed forces, the intelligence services, and all of the civil workers. You're pumping up all the money for the arms. But he won't listen to you. He's insane. I want to ask everybody who's watching, does that even make sense to you? Huh? In the chat, if that makes sense to you, and say yes. If what I said doesn't make sense, just put a thumbs down. But you know what I'm saying makes sense. So if what I'm saying making sense, instead of you even responding, just put a thumbs up. Put thumbs up in the chat for me real quick, if you can understand where I'm coming from. All right, because I'm trying to figure out why isn't alternative media on the back of NATO and the US and the UK like they're on the back of Zelensky. This didn't happen out the blue. Zelensky didn't wake up one day and say he wanted to be president and then take over Ukraine and say, I want to fight the Russians. Matter of fact, when he ran for president, he won because he won on a platform saying that he wanted to reconcile with Russia. Isn't that something? How soon we forget, right? Man, I'm telling you, it's amazing how we forget this. And then the United States, because the United States and Britain, because they're losing. Because remember, I told you these are the two daughters of Babylon, and they're fighting for survival. And NATO is fighting with it because it's an existential threat to NATO also, because if the dollar collapses, the power of the military juggernaut, America collapses. That's what I'm saying. I see a thumbs up. That's what I'm saying. Thank you, AM. Thank you. So they're fighting like mad. They're fighting everywhere. They've caused chaos every place. And now I'm gonna play a clip here. This is a clip from the Yemeni nation, from the people of Yemen and the surrounding area. I'm gonna play this clip because this has something to do with the belligerence of the West. Remember, just the other day, yesterday I believe it, the Houthis downed another U.S. drone. Not only have they downed a drone, but they hit Israel. They struck Israel with a hypersonic missile yesterday, and they struck a military base and I think a port or something, a port facility. And they say they will continue their struggle because their struggle is the struggle of Palestine and everything else. And another thing, everybody, people think that the Houthis just got involved just because it's Palestine. That's partly the case, but part of their land is being occupied by the British, the U.S., and the Israelis. All right, so keep that in mind. So let me play this real quick. All right.
On Yemen's west coast, the armed forces showcased their readiness with a multi-tiered simulation that spanned air, land, and sea. This maneuver mimicked the large-scale assault from foreign forces, aiming to prepare Yemen's troops for a possible invasion.
These maneuvers were able to reflect the state of upcoming operations in the face of any hostile attacks, whether from America and Britain or through tools they are currently supporting to throw them into a battle they will undoubtedly lose. Anyone who follows these maneuvers and sees the joint forces and the extent of coordination and cooperation among the various units of the Yemeni armed forces realizes the difficulty of U.S. challenge regarding the Yemeni territory.
The exercise unfolded in 4 distinct waves, each representing a progressive offensive by hypothetical enemy forces, namely the United States, the UK, and Israel. These waves simulated naval and land-based attacks, with hypothetical enemy ships preparing to breach the coastline. Yemeni land and naval forces responded with a rehearsed defensive and offensive moves across different terrains, including coastal areas, cities, deserts, and mountainous regions.
This maneuver was part of the response to the United States and Britain, and in the light of their aggression against us. The success of the 5 military maneuvers is certainly a message of full preparedness for any upcoming escalation, because the indicators show there is an upcoming escalation, and it is natural for the Yemeni army to prepare for such a scenario. And without a doubt, America and Britain will be the biggest losers if they engage in this battle.
In a notable unveiling, Yemen's military introduced its first unmanned submarine called Al-Qari'ah. This new weapon was showcased as part of the Navy's defense lineup, signaling a strategic shift towards advanced naval capabilities. During the simulation, the Yemeni forces demonstrated the submarine's capabilities by using it to destroy a minesweeper, clearing a path for supposed enemy amphibious vehicles. This military exercise sends a clear message. Yemen is preparing for any potential military campaign, whether they come from land, air, or sea, benefiting from new technologies like the unmanned submarine Al-Qari'ah and well-rehearsed tactical responses. Yemen's armed forces are bracing for a range of possible confrontations. Abdul Latif Al-Washali, Press TV, Sana'a.
So they were right for bracing themselves and preparing for a range of actions by the U.S. and the U.K. Remember, I told you these two are the same coin. They're just 2 different sides of it, right? That's it. Now, just today, Saturday, November 9th, article comes out. U.S.-UK launch fresh strikes on Yemen's Hodeidah in support of Israel. It says, now see, they did this in support of Israel. They're demanding Iraq not allow Iran to use its territory or its airspace to respond to Israeli and U.S. aggression and UK aggression against Iran, because Don't think that those were just U.S. and UK and Israeli planes. This was a coalition. They had to put up 50 to 100 planes. This was outside of the scope of Israel. They had to have, on top of that, refueling tankers. They had to have real-time intelligence fed from these satellites. They had to have AWACS in the air. All of this is outside of Israel's military capability. So America clears the corridor for strikes against Iran. And now they're demanding that Iraq not allow Iran to legally use its airspace or its territory to strike back, while at the same time striking Yemen. Right? Do you see the hypocrisy of that? So these B-2 bombers and all of this stuff that were put there, I continue to tell you that America, when she thinks about what she's going to do to you, she tells you the opposite. And then she'll justify the increment buildup of weapons and war material. That's what has happened in West Asia and North Africa. Listen, the article says, U.S. and British warplanes have conducted a joint airstrike against a target in Yemen amid the country's solidarity with the Palestinians in the besieged Gaza Strip and the Lebanese nation in the face of Israel's brutal aggression. Yemen's Arabic language Al Misra television network, citing a security source speaking on condition of anonymity, reported that the attack targeted an area in the Al Gharairi district of Yemen's strategic western province of Hudaydah on Saturday evening. Now, it didn't say a U.S., it said a U.S. British, right? Right? A U.S.-UK strike. I keep telling you, they are one and the same. And that is why, because both of them, life is on the line, and they're fighting like hell. They have to keep that entity known as Israel alive. They have to do what they have to do to try to prevent that from collapsing, because if that collapses, all of the lies and all of the propaganda that they have fed the world since the 40s collapses with it. Yeah. So they're not just going to sit back and allow that to happen. But here's the trick to it. They want to kind of weaken all of the axes of resistance. Notice that these assassinations that are taking place across the Middle East, these bombings that are taking place across the Middle East, only happened after Rafik Hariri was killed. He was a U.S. stooge out of Lebanon. After he used up his utility, they assassinated him. And then they blamed the assassination on the Assad government. Even though Assad he allowed Rafik Hariri to do what he did in Lebanon. But they thought Assad was weak. Listen to me good. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a little back channel story on this, okay? And we're going to connect the dots to what's going on and why it's going on. So first of all, President Bashar Assad was not supposed to be the president of Syria. Most of you don't know that. When Hafez died, his father, when he passed away, his older brother was supposed to take over. He was killed in a car accident, strangely. And so Assad was an eye doctor, I believe. And he went to school in London. So they had a feel for him. They thought he was weak. And so when he came back, and they tried to bribe him, and they tried to threaten him, and he wouldn't bow, that's when they went to work on making plans to try to overthrow Assad. And it was not for the sake of just overthrowing Assad. It was for the sake of weakening Iran so that they can get to Iran, so that they can prevent the Belt and Road Initiative that was being talked about decades ago. I mean, a decade or plus ago. And also to weaken what would emerge now as the Eurasian Economic Union. So what do I mean by that? Before Rafik Hariri was assassinated by the U.S. in the West and blamed on Syria, Syria had forces forward deployed in Lebanon. This prevented the Israeli Air Forces from using Lebanese airspace to do what they're doing right now. The U.S., France, the UK, and NATO put so much pressure on it. They blamed them without any proof. They used the media organs to beat that drumbeat that he must either extricate Syrian troops from out of Lebanon, which is crazy because Lebanon was once a part of Syria. Go figure. Anyway, he must remove his troops out of there and allow for free and fair elections. And that's how they get their boys up in there. So he was under tremendous pressure. So finally he capitulated and moved his forces back. Now we have a daily bombing stream and a daily use of Lebanese airspace to strike into Syria and to skirt borders and all of that stuff. That was not possible prior to the assassination of Rafik Hariri and the pressure put on the Syrian Arab Republic to remove their troops out of Lebanon. There would not have been a weakened Syria. There would not have been an influx of terrorists from out of Turkey, Jordan, from every different direction that the Syrian forces had to fight against. So once they weakened Syria by political pressure and Syria moved back, they went to work with their color revolution, and they came up with al-Nusra and ISIS. And there was an influx of terrorists into Syria to try to overthrow the Syrian Republic so that they can weaken Lebanon, Syria. They had already subjected Iraq and Jordan. And the prize would be Iran. What did they say? What did Dick Cheney say? Anybody can go to Baghdad, but real men go to Tehran. That was the plan. And why they were never forgiving that the revolution of 79 took place, and America and British economic interests were kicked out, and British and U.S. intelligence were kicked out. They were never satisfied, and they never forgave, just like they had never forgiven Muammar Gaddafi when he kicked the U.S. out of his biggest military base in Africa. Remember, when this happened, as with Libya, Syria had no external debt. External. But you know what the bankers have to do? They have to get you in a position where you're in debt. And if you're in debt to me, you got to dance by my tune, right? So they wanted to get to Iran. They would control the pipelines and the waterways. You got the Indian Ocean, you got the Persian Gulf, you got the Gulf of Aden, you got the Red Sea. They see all along these areas, all the way up into the Mediterranean. They would have all of that while working against Russia and taking over the Black Sea. All of that would have been under US-UK hegemony. So they would have, in essence, controlled international trade, not just with the dollar, but with the gun. You understand? And having Iran at the time, remember they had Afghanistan. So they would have been deep in China, India, and Russia's underbelly, keeping them fighting. And one of the writings from one of the think tanks said they wanted to preoccupy them with little fires on their own doorstep so that they couldn't respond to what America was trying to do. That was in one of the papers. I'm not making this stuff up. So let me bring something up to you. So why now are they bombing Syria? Because Syria was bombed yesterday. Iraq was bombed. Guess who else was bombed? Yemen was bombed. Why now? I'll tell you why now. All right, listen close to this, right? Okay. All right. Okay, check this out. An article came out on November 6th. November 6th. Listen to this good. Iran's CBI to launch new currency exchange market. Listen to this good. The central bank of Iran is planning to launch a new currency exchange market in a bid to control prices to make it easier for importers to access hard currency generated from exports. What is major about this? It's because Iran already has a oil and gas bourse, and they've just been cemented in as a part of the BRICS. And so Iran has already connected its interpayment service with Russia, and they are connecting their interpayment services with China. This is a direct assault on U.S. dollar supremacy. Nobody talks about it. Nobody mentioned it. So what America does, what does the UK do? They up the pressure with provocations and bombings to try to make you think, hey, you better walk this stuff back because we're going to hit your allies. We're going to hit your allies more and more and more and more and more and more and more. This is what they do. Why do you think, as I said to you on the show with Calls On yesterday, that they allowed Trump to be selected in office? Do I believe that he got the popular vote? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I think he got the popular vote by more than what they're showing. I do believe that. I do believe he would have won the election had they not, if they wanted to have a free and fair election or whatever. Because he tapped into something, into some disgruntled people. He tapped into something. But what I'm saying to the world is that there are no elections for president. There are selections for the president. And when they looked at it, they ran Kamala and they ran Trump. Kamala was not going to win, but they wanted controlled chaos. They knew that Trump was not a politician in the sense of old world politicians. Close that, please. Close that, please. I was asking, my son is back in here. He's doing something behind the computers for me. And 90% of the time when I'm doing something, he's helping me with the computers. But they figured that the people were so upset from the last election that was taken from Trump. And the people they ransacked the Capitol building. They were everywhere. They were teed off. So the elite, the different parties came up with, hey, let's make this look like an election and let us allow him in and put our men and women around him so that we can direct him and control him as much as possible. Because if we prevent him this time, we may have a civil war. Because Trump had already said that he wasn't going to accept losing if they cheated. Right? And Trump had already said that he was prepared for anything. So it makes sense to have a controlled chaos. And I know everybody's in the chat. Salute to everybody in the chat. I'll come back to you shortly. But I'm saying this to say this. Why do you think they did that? He had to appeal to some of the people in the deep state or who were minions of the deep state. That's why he came out talking about this right here. Let me pull something up. I'm gonna show you how quick, easy this is. I put up words. Trump says Iran tried to assassinate him, right? Reuters pops up. Reuters. This was September 25th, not November. September, not October. September. All right. Trump implicates Iran without evidence in assassination attempt against him. Republican presidential candidate at the time, not president-elect, but candidate, okay? Trump on Wednesday said Iran may have been behind recent attempts to assassinate him and suggested that if he were president and another country threatened a U.S. presidential candidate, it risked being blown to smithereens, right? Now listen to this part. Trump made his remarks at a campaign event after U.S. intelligence officials briefed him a day earlier on real and specific threats from Iran to assassinate him. Now, all right. So, he had no evidence, just an inkling of the people that, well, we believe. Hell, I can believe it's an airplane out on my porch. That don't make it so. I can believe that I have 5 feet. That does not make it so. You understand what I'm saying? So then, as they fed him that, they are locking him in. Listen to what's going on while he's saying that. Okay? We got to put you in the mind of what's going on. This is September. The U.S. is sending bunker buster bombs to Israel. The U.S. is sending high powerful radars to Israel. The U.S. is sending F-16s to Israel. The U.S. is beefing up its bases, its illegal bases in Iraq and Syria, and its bases in the Persian Gulf and in Jordan. The U.S. is rotating warships and carrier groups in and out of the area. Tensions are starting to escalate even more. Right? Then we hear that the United States is now arresting people saying that they were involved in the planned assassination for Donald Trump. Now, anyone who looks at what took place from the first so-called assassination know that could not have been from Iran. Anyone. Common sense tells you that. Man climbs up on the roof and all this stuff. Man, stop this. Then the second one is out on his golf course. Now listen to me good. This man has security on his golf course. And the man had been in hiding for the long. Where was he going to hide at? In the water all this time for weeks? And how did he know Trump's schedule to be there? Huh? So you're telling me that this man was so smart that not only did he beat the Secret Service, but he also beat the security, the high security at Trump's golf course? Huh? And they found him in the bushes? The dogs that they that the Secret Service used to sniff out stuff, the dogs didn't sniff him. The cameras didn't pick him up. The overflight of the helicopters that they used to canvass the ground didn't pick up the heat signature. Stop this foolishness, man. Stop it. Who you think you talking to? I was born that night, just not last night. Okay? So, really, these are questions that we should understand, that we should ask. And then now look at where we are right now. The United States just deployed more warplanes there. More. And this happened after Iran threatens to hit back. Now, listen, this is Iran's response to the United States saying that, before we go to that, this is Trump on the campaign trail. Remember, I read you what he said on the campaign trail about the assassination attempts, right? But this is what he said on the campaign trail regarding Iran and Israel. And remember why he's saying that. There's a great buildup for war in the region by the United States. All this is in the background. The bunker busters, all of this stuff that has been used and is being used right now. All right, listen to what he says right here.
I listened to Biden yesterday. You know, since I went under the wing, I used to go under the wing of the aircraft. Nobody ever did that before. I did. All of a sudden, Biden started, but he only takes like a half a question. Usually can't answer it. But they asked him, what do you think about Iran? Would you hit Iran? And he goes, as long as they don't hit the nuclear stuff. That's the thing you want to hit, right? I said, I think he's got that one wrong. Isn't that what you're supposed to hit? I mean, it's the biggest risk we have. Nuclear weapons, the power of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt the entire military. Jets, everything. I built it, including nuclear, and I hated to build the nuclear, but I got to know firsthand the power of that stuff, and I'll tell you what, we have to be totally prepared. We have to be absolutely prepared, but when they asked him that question, the answer should have been, hit the nuclear first and worry about the rest later, and that's what they should. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it, but we'll find out whatever their plans are, but great question. Thank you very much.
All right. This is what he was saying on the campaign trail. I didn't put that in his mouth. I'm not attacking him. I'm saying all of this set the stage for where we are right now. Right? And with the accusations of Iran. See, this is to build the atmosphere for war against Iran because of that bank doing what it's doing. You know, the bank, the CBI, the Central Bank of Iran, launching that currency exchange. That's on top of that oil and gas bourse, which is connected to Russia's oil bourse, and which is connected to with China's gold exchange. All of these are BRICS members. So they thought that they could beat Russia. Russia's more powerful. But they say, now the weakest link, we got to take out Iran. If we take out Iran, we can throw something, a cog in the engine or whatever. So this is what Iran had to say about the claims that they are planning on assassinating Trump.
Iran has denied claims that it was behind an alleged plot to assassinate President-elect Donald Trump. That comes after the U.S. Justice Department charged an Iranian national in connection with the plan. But Tehran says the accusations are baseless.
The spokesperson Esmail Baghai categorically dismissed allegations that Iran was involved in attempts to assassinate former and current U.S. officials and described the claims as completely baseless and rejected. He emphasized that repeating such claims at this juncture is a malicious conspiracy orchestrated by Zionist and anti-Iranian circles, aimed at further complicating the issues between the U.S. and Iran.
Well, let's head on over to Tehran now and speak to RT's Yusuf Jalali. So, Yusuf, I mean, Trump's not even in office and already making some pretty strong international waves, but that is a serious allegation being made by Washington. What do we know at this stage? What's been said?
Well, of course, Iran does not have good memories from Trump in his first term. It says it has no intention to assassinate him. The Foreign Ministry spokesman Esmail Baghai made 3 issues clear. First, he said Iran was not behind the recent attempts to kill Donald Trump. And second, he said that similar accusations have been made in the past against Iran, which Tehran has firmly denied and, quote, proven false. And third, he said he blamed such claims on Israel, saying that repeating such allegations at this critical juncture, quote, is a malicious conspiracy orchestrated by Israel and anti-Iran circles. And what's the reason? He said it's aimed at further complicating the issues between Washington and Tehran. Tehran's statement, of course, comes after 3 people have been charged in a series of alleged Iran-linked murder plots, with one of them accused of trying to assassinate President-elect Donald Trump, and others targeting an Iranian-American activist and 2 Jewish Americans living in New York. That's according to a criminal complaint unsealed Friday in New York.
There are few actors in the world that pose as grave a threat to the national security of the United States as does Iran. The Justice Department has charged an asset of the Iranian regime, who was tasked by the regime to direct a network of criminal associates to further Iran's assassination plots against its targets, including President-elect Donald Trump.
One of those people, of course, his name is Farhad Shakeri, identified by the FBI as an asset of Iran's Islamic Revolution Guards Corps, the IRGC. He's suspected to be in Tehran. The complaint alleges that the IRGC instructed him to surveil and target Trump as retaliation for the killing of Qasem Soleimani, the former commander of the IRGC Quds Force, which is in charge of external operations by the IRGC. Of course, now Shakeri was reportedly tasked by the IRGC to carry out also other assassination plots against U.S. and Israeli individuals within the United States, including targeting Trump. In a previous statement during a rally in September, Trump said that Iran was actively aiming to target him and issued threats of retaliation with bombs against Tehran.
If I were the president, I would inform the threatening country, in this case Iran, that if you do anything to harm this person, we are going to blow your largest cities and the country itself to smithereens. We're going to blow it to smithereens. You can't do that. And there would be no more threats. There would be no more threats.
Of course, those remarks came as Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian was back then attending the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Back then, Iran said those allegations are clearly part of the U.S. election climate and serve specific political goals, making them, quote, unworthy of a response. Right after Trump won the 2024 election, Iran called his victory an opportunity for the United States to reassess past wrong policies. Of course, during his first term, Trump left two dark memories for Iran. The first is his withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal as part of his so-called maximum pressure campaign against Tehran. And the second, and perhaps most important, is the killing and the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani. His assassination took place on direct order from Donald Trump back in January 2020. And of course, back then, Iran vowed revenge. But the country has never officially mentioned that it would assassinate Trump or for this incident. But Tehran has said that Trump must be arrested and be brought to justice. So it remains to be seen what more will surface out of this new case.
Certainly, the next couple of months and years will be very interesting to see how it develops under Donald Trump vis-a-vis Iran. That was our RT correspondent, Yusuf Jalali. Many thanks, Yusuf.
Then there's something that America feels that she has the right to assassinate people, and they have no right to come back and get their get back. Huh? That's the thought of a bully. I can bully you, I can beat you, I can rape you, I can and YouTube, listen. I know those are key words. I'm just saying it in that term, not that we're trying to rape nobody. Because I know YouTube. Rumble is not YouTube, but they believe that they can do all of that stuff and none of that comes back. That's an era of arrogance, the level of which you have not seen before. To believe that you can do and create all of the hell and pile it up on everybody else and none of that is supposed to come back because it's you. Because it's you. Who the hell are you? You're not God. Who the hell are you to believe that you can do such things and not have to pay the consequences of the law of cause and effect? Science dictates that any action receives equal or greater reaction. Right? You can't nullify that law. I don't care who you are. But I just want you to think about these things. Man, I'm telling you, these people are lunatics. So I'm gonna play you what we'll wrap it up in a few minutes. But I saw something in the chat real quick. And let me go to it. Let me see if I can pull it up. The reason I'm not highlighting the chat at this moment, which I'll try to highlight it, is because I have the dashboard up with the clips that I want to get to you guys first. Kylie Beans says, he says, if a war between Iran and America breaks out, won't Israel be completely destroyed? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, here's the kicker here when it comes to that. Iran will be devastated. Israel will be destroyed. And America will be dethroned. Devastated, destroyed, and dethroned. And what I mean by that is when war breaks out, the whole region goes to war. North Africa, what they term as the Middle East, all of that goes to war. Remember, America is not as she's still powerful now, don't get it twisted. But she's not as powerful as she once was. And think about this. Iran is going to sink a carrier group or two. They have those CO-8 missiles from China, and they have been modernized. These things are something else. They have those Onyx from Russia. These things are something else. Go Google this and see what they're about. I believe they have a few Yakunt missiles. These things are something else, and U.S. naval defenses cannot stop those. They skim the sea, just right above the water as they're shot, so that radar does not pick it up until about 3 to 5 seconds before it hits. That's not enough time to launch a defense against it. So if Iran hits a carrier group, guess what that means? God forbid, there's thousands of sailors. Think about that. And think about if they close the Strait of Hormuz, 25 to 30% of all of the oil and gas is transited there. They can make moves in the Arabian Sea, the Arabian Gulf, excuse me. They can make moves in the Indian Ocean. And on land, it's going to be hell to pay because you got former colonies in North Africa and former colonies in what they term as the Middle East, fighting for survival and independence on a real level. So yes, Iran will be devastated with the military power that America brings to bear. But as you heard on my show yesterday with Carl Zar, Iran doesn't stand alone anymore. Russia and China have supplied Iran with, I won't say victory weapons, I'll say enough to hobble and make the empire limp out of the Middle East. So Iran will be devastated, Israel will be totally destroyed, and America will be dethroned because she will not be the undisputed hegemon anymore. And when she lips out, her economy will be in tatters, as what's her name says, in tatters, I tell you. So, and America will have to limp into Asia to try to finish up her plans of trying to prevent China's breakout capacity. So, when this happens, because it's going to happen, everybody says, oh, I don't see it happening. Cooler heads will prevail. Listen to me good. I don't care how cool. You can have ice on your head. You are not going to be able to carry this over due to the fact that you have disgruntled populations. You have disgruntled nations, and you have occupying powers that are trying to suppress the will and the thought and the masses of the people there. This is a recipe for an explosion. An explosion. I don't care how cool the heads are in the governments. When the people on the street start getting up and demanding X, Y, and Z, either the leaders will do it or they'll be thrown out. We're watching something in real time that is absolutely mind-boggling. It's soul-shaking. That you're getting a chance to live in the end on the fumes of empire. And what I mean by the fumes is the empire is running on fumes. Every choice she makes is a bad choice. What she's trying to navigate now is which bad choice should she make. The one that will just make her hobble, or the one that will just decapitate her hegemony. Because if she goes in full steam with China, that's going to decapitate her hegemony. She has neither. Think about, I want everybody to stop for a minute. But I want you to think about this. Excuse me. And I run these numbers by you over and over again because sometimes it doesn't seep in. 93 to 95% of all goods come from China. That's in America. They either come from China's mainland or one of China's factories in Vietnam or Cambodia or something like that. But nonetheless, they are Chinese. Okay? How a war would play out between the United States and China. China embargoes the United States. Guess what happens? In less than 2 weeks, there's nothing on the store shelves. What does that mean? Freight dries up, shipping dries up, transportation of trucks dries up. That means unemployment. Stores close down, unemployment, bankruptcies because they cannot pay the bill. That means banks are having now to come to grips with all of these IOUs and these bankruptcies. And now the banks have to go and pay their bills. And so the banks are going belly up. So now we're seeing a death spiral, the likes of what you've never seen. So now you're in a war with a near peer power or equal power. But here's the kicker on this. The microchips in your warplanes, your warships, the boots on your soldiers' feet, the uniforms that they wear are sourced from China. So if they cut off the chips, where are you going to get the replacement missiles from? How are you going to navigate? How are you going to close your soldiers and your Marines and your airmen? And if it takes you 5 years to replace one destroyer, What if you lose 10? When China has a 200 to 500 time capacity of building over you, and they are the manufacturing hub of the world. How is that going to play out good for you? How? Make that make sense. Make it make sense. See, these facts are not brought before you, but on this platform, we bring them before you. And we want to give you the truth. Matter of fact, because America has lost and UK has lost, and they're losing at every turn, every flipping turn they're losing. They have it in their mind that if I can't rule, I'm not going to leave the earth viable for any other rule. That's their policies. We see it. They won't get out of Latin America. They won't get out of the Caribbean. They won't get out of Africa. They won't get out of Asia. They won't get out of Eastern Europe. Look what's in Eastern Europe, war. Look what's in North Africa, war. Look what's in Asia, the spread of war. Look what's in Latin America. The people are now bucking the trend. They don't want to be suppressed by the West. Look at what's going on in the Caribbean. They are now trying to assert their own independence from colonial Britain and the rest of those colonial nations. And then America and the West, they do this. This pisses me off here. I'm going to explain something to you guys. They undermine governments. They assassinate leaders. They ignore the will of the people. And when they finally go in and bomb the nation, they purposely destroy institutions, government institutions that make a nation governable. And once they do that, they put the media in play to make it seem like those people are savages. And then when the people migrate to Europe or to the United States, we have a problem with migration and illegal immigration. You are the reason. You're the problem. Because you won't mind your own business. You're worlds away trying to dictate to other people. And when you destroy their institutions and they run to you, it becomes a problem. It's not a problem with you overthrowing their leaders and their governments, bumming the hell out of the government institutions, sanctioning the nation and refusing to allow them to progress on their own terms. That's not enough. It only becomes a problem to you when there's an influx of those people who are trying to flee the very situations that your economic, political, and military policies made. Huh? That's what you do. You go cause trouble, go destroy stuff, and then when you break it, you run back home and tell the people it's those people's problem. It's their fault. It's their fault they're here. Either assimilate or leave. Either assimilate or leave. You didn't assimilate. You bombed the hell out of those people. When they didn't do what they told you to come in according to our rules, according to our laws. You couldn't agree. You're trying to tell Uganda what to do. And you're sanctioning Uganda while having a bio lab there with the bubonic plague there, where you're trying to experiment on stuff, and they're telling you, hey, listen, we're going to allow you to do that. But the thing that you can't do is tell us we got to go with this LGBT and all of this other stuff and this he-she stuff. So you get into your feelings because they don't accept that, and you sanction them. You go to the next nation and you do the same thing. You're trying to force them and mold them into your image and your likeness. And when they don't, you implement a regime of sanctions, and then you come up with this color revolution and all of this stuff like this. And if the people flood to your country, guess what? They're the problem. They don't know how to govern themselves. They were governing themselves properly. You intervened and tried to fold a mesh and make them and mold them into what you wanted, into your image and into your likeness. That's what you try to do. Matter of fact, let me play a clip for you on this matter right here to show you that these people are doing this behind closed doors. Listen to this.
In my view, Mali today is confronted by a group of terrorists, indeed terrorist states. They include the United States and its allies such as France. Indeed, the terrorists in northern Mali have always been supported by France and NATO. That is clearly demonstrated by a recent interview with one of the leaders of the Strategic Framework for the Defence of the People of Azawad, who confirmed that they are supported by Ukraine. And they are indeed being assisted in financing and organising terrorist activity in northern Mali. And here in Mali, they're trying to target Russia. When any state behaves in a hostile manner, in terms of diplomacy, the least we can do is to instigate an interpellation. When we initiated an interpellation to the Ukrainian ambassador, he behaved unfriendly towards us. The only way is to expel him. I believe that today a country like Ukraine is not useful for Mali. Their interaction between Mali and Ukraine has little return, both in economic terms and in terms of security and real cooperation. So at this point in time, in my opinion, it makes no sense at all to continue interaction with a country that's trying to support terrorists against us. We believe that Ukraine is an aggressor country. Today, we understand the real and deep nature of the crisis in Russia's relations with Ukraine.
So now I want to ask you this. You see, Ukraine is spreading terror in Mali, in the Sahel. France is doing the same thing. Germany is doing the same thing. You didn't know Germany had, and I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind too. Canada and Australia have troops there too. The United States has troops there. Listen, this is what NATO does. When they want to sneak into these countries, but they don't want you to know that it's NATO, they then just tell you the individual countries. Italy is doing such and such, and Germany is doing this over there, and Spain is doing this over there, and blah blah blah. These are colonial powers now. All of them work in concert together, and all of them are members of the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization. So if France is there, Germany is there, and Spain is there, and Italy is there, and the UK is there, and America is there, aren't these members of that terrorist organization? And won't they move to promote their policies of hegemony, regardless to whom or what? Huh? I'm asking. So we see that's how they roll. That is how they get down. But they don't want you to know this, so they talk down to you. Now, I'm going back to Ukraine for a minute because I want to just show you how they hide stuff right in front of you. They hide it in plain view. So the Malian person that was speaking was telling you about Ukraine's intervention into Mali and all of this stuff and how they're there, so they had to expel the Ukrainian ambassador and whatever because Ukraine is promoting terror. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be a pundit or one of these prognosticators or one of these geopolitical. How is Ukraine transporting troops to North Africa? If they can't even fly a plane in Ukrainian airspace, how the hell are they transporting them out of Ukraine into Africa? Huh? Talk to me. And if they're begging the West for weapons, how are they transporting weapons there and then training separatists and supplying the separatists with weapons? And all of this costs money. So if the United States is funding Ukraine, how the hell can Ukraine fund the terrorists? I'm asking. Okay. So there must be some hidden hands behind the scene that is orchestrating this madness in North Africa. And we all know who supplies the money, who is supplying the weapons, and who's supplying the training. It's those same colonial powers that is doing it around the world. That is France, Germany, Russia, America, the UK, Belgium, all of these same nations have their hands in Ukraine. Ukraine is begging them for weapons, begging them for money. They can't fly a plane in Ukrainian airspace without it getting shot down. So how in the hell can they transport troops and weapons to North Africa? And that costs money. So when we look at the whole situation, we know that it's a plot by the North Atlantic terrorist organization to do what? To cause chaos, division, dissension, and desperation in North Africa. To do the same thing in what they call the Middle East. Why? Because those are two destinations of the Belt and Road. And who promotes the Belt and Road? China, the BRICS, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That's what's going on. That's why the terror is spreading. That's why all of this. Have you ever noticed that America knows all of the terrorists and the whole rank and file when the group comes out of nowhere? How is that possible? You have the day of a bombing, America has the list of everybody. Boom, 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 the rank, command, the file, everything. Boom, 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 boom. Did you notice that 9/11? The planes hadn't hit the so-called planes hadn't hit the building quick enough, and they're trying to feed you this mess talking about they found a passport on the ground. I want you to see the madness of that. They want you to believe that planes caused reinforced steel that could withstand multiple hits by it. They were built to withstand multiple hits by planes, heavy winds, because they were built so tall. And they had a temperature that they could withstand fire up to 5,000 degrees, right? And they want you to believe that those planes, the gas in those planes got so hot that it melted steel, and on top of that, killed everybody aboard. It melted, listen to what I just said, it melted steel, but a passport escaped that type of fire and landed on the ground? Huh? Again, born that night, just not last night. Listen, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for joining me on this edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I want to say this to those who are my channel members and those who are my patrons. I'm going to try to do a show tomorrow if my voice holds up. If my voice doesn't hold up, I'm going to make up for it next week. It's getting raspy. It's really bothering me at this moment. I'm going to make me a little lemon tea and sit down and try to recoup. So I'm going to bring this to a close, and I want to thank each and every one of you for giving me your time, because you didn't have to do this, especially on the weekend. So from the bottom of my heart to the depth of my soul, I want to thank you. I also want to let you know this, to do right by others, not because there's something in it for you and not because anybody else is watching, but do right by others because it's the right thing to do. And remember, when nobody else is watching, God always has his eyes on you. Know that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you all. We out of here. Peace.